Did anyone not expect that to happen? Was it just me? Welcome back. What a night of boxing. I actually predicted this fight spot on. I said it was gonna end in the second round. I thought it was gonna be via TKO. This was a clean, vicious KO. I thought the latest it would go would be the third round. As I predicted, Nate did a lot better than everyone thought. He held his own better than Gib. But in this video, I'm just going to be giving my initial thoughts, and then we'll have other videos. But I got to give credit to Jake, you know what I mean? Like, hate him or love him, he put on a good performance today. He, I think, impressed probably a lot of media people and people that doubted him. That KO, I mean, that's a highlight, and I mean, that's for him. If I was Jake and I just KO'd somebody that way, I would feel like I'd be the best boxer on earth. Nate, as I said, came out a lot better. I think that Nate is what Gib should have been, except that Gib didn't have the athleticism. Nate was very unorthodox, didn't have a lot of technique, no defense, some, but not good enough. Nate's was basically this. Like, he just literally, like, was pushing him back. And I actually think that when he did that, that was good. But I think that, again, if the fight had gone on longer, Nate might have lost his energy and his stamina. But again, like I said, and people hated on me for this, I said Nate's athleticism is what was going to be a factor in him potentially winning. But obviously, he didn't win. But I knew that his athleticism was going to come in handy. This fight is how the Gib fight should have gone. And that's probably what we were expecting from Gib. I mean, I think that Nate was very nervous. I mean, literally, when the fight was happening, Jake was like, he was prepared, he was, doing this, and Nate was literally getting his shoes tied and going like this. It was fighting off of nervous energy. I'm not someone who thought Nate was going to win. I know a lot of people on Twitter have been saying, oh, you guys... who said Nate was going to win because he was athletic. I know that just because you're an athlete doesn't mean you can box. And yeah, Nate he didn't have a good enough mentality. He didn't have a good enough skill. Jake has had an amazing mentality in terms of not getting nerves, getting the better of him when he fights, and also just has the skill to box. I will say Nate was able to avoid Jake's punches very well, and he did avoid a good chunk of them. And I think that Nate's was very fast and very efficient, and I think that if Nate wanted to box more, I think he could. I think that he just needs to fight people that are at a lower level, and I feel like if he worked for a long time and chunk of years, he could. But obviously, he will never fight again. Why would you fight again after that vicious KO? The problem with Nate is that he came at him, but he had no plan. He had no defense. He left himself open to many shots. Jake was very composed, quiet in the sense that he just let Nate do his thing and kind of let him conserve his energy and pick his shots well. I will say that the positives for Jake is, again, I think that the guy has power, you know what I mean? I don't know what punch you would call this. I don't know the boxing terminology. I think it's a right hand, maybe? But the punch that he I'll show the clip right here, that he landed on Nate, where he goes like, boom. That is Jake's, that is his biggest asset. In all of the sparring videos, that's the exact punch that all of his sparring partners go down for. That is his biggest weapon. And honestly, I think that's how Jake wins fights. I think that whoever fights Jake next should look seriously at him sparring and understand that I think we've found what wins Jake the fight. I will say, though, I think that his performance against Gib and even Deji was better than his performance against Nate. I've watched the fight many times, and if you actually want to see the technique and what the skills of Jake and Nate, put the speed at 0.5 and watch it in slow-mo, because it gives you an entirely new perspective on the fight. I feel like Jake was kind of a bit unorthodox. Like, he's a good fighter, but Jake kind of fights like, instead of KSI fights very unorthodox, he fights like this against Logan, whereas Jake fights like this. So they both have a wild technique, and Jake was throwing some big overhand rights, I think. I hope I'm using that terminology correctly, where he just went like this. And he actually, when they went to the scorecards, Nate, I think, outpointed Jake by like 1 point. It was a very close fight in terms of points. I think on points, Nate was very close to Jake, so it wasn't like, but the percentage-wise, Jake was ahead. But I mean, if Nate didn't get Hoodie, he might have been able to outpoint him. But I feel like they would have to be at a much lower level for that to happen. Reacted to him knocking out his sparring partners. He throws a lot of unnecessary punches. You know, he misses a lot. He missed almost 30 punches in his fight against Gib, but landed almost 30 or close to 30 when he hurt Gib the first time. His performance was good. You know, I'm not saying that he was bad, because he was so much better than a lot of the YouTubers. But technically, I think that he has a long way to go. I think that this was a good performance, but I feel like it was because of that second round brutal KO. And that's, I think, the thing that Jake has mastered the most, and that's the most impressive thing that stands out to me. And I didn't think this fight was going to impress me. But I mean, again, what did anyone expect? You know, Nate had no defense, just like Jake's sparring partners, and didn't know how to fight, and Jake did. And Jake, this was a clear view of two fighters on different levels. Nate is at the level of a Deadly, of a Gib. He could probably beat those two guys, but he's not at the level that Jake and Logan are at. You know what I mean? It's like when you have and like the size difference between these two was laughable. I mean, Jake just had more muscle. He was taller. He just knew what he was doing, and Nate just came at it with no game plan. Jake, you know, he's at a decent level where he can beat and easily embarrass a ton of influencers and NBA players and maybe some MMA fighters, but he says he wants to fight Conor in a couple years, and I think you should fight Conor maybe in like a decade. Judging by his technique, he is nowhere at the level that he needs to be at to beat someone like Conor, like any like legitimate fighter. Like if Jake went up against someone who knew what they were doing, he would get destroyed like Nate. Jake is going to become too overconfident in himself, and not in the sense that he won't train super hard and he won't continue to keep on grinding, but the sense in that in 3 years we might see Jake versus Conor, and you can bet your bottom dollar that Jake is gonna go down like Nate did. So again, my final thoughts are this. Nate did his best. He impressed people. I think he did better than everyone thought he did. But at the end of the day, he was bested by Jake. Jake had the mentality. Jake had the skill. From the day one that this fight was announced, everyone knew who was going to win. Everyone knew who was going to lose. It was Jake for the win, Nate for the loss. You shouldn't hate Jake for this performance, because this was an impressive performance. That KO was definitely one for the book. I think when you look at that fight as a technique, it just was kind of like it was like a YouTube fight. You know what I mean? I think Jake should be confident in himself, but I think looking at his skills and his technique, and I will go into this more in depth when I break down the fight. I personally don't think he is at the level that he thinks he's at, nor is he at the level that the people that he's calling out he should be fighting. He has a long way to go. And I think we need to be level-headed about Jake. And you know what I mean. I don't want the KO to get to his head. At the end of the day, he fought 3 people that didn't train, weighed less, shorter, and Deadly was the only one that gave Jake Paul an actual fight. And I did notice that Jake was breathing super heavily after the fight ended. And while he says he has good stamina, I feel like with both fights he seems very tired after that. So yeah, he needs to fight somebody where he's going to be the underdog, where they're at his level skills wise. Dillon Danis, Logan Paul, Vidal. I know Vidal is like at another level, but like I feel like Jake now has to go up against somebody that is at his level or even better. He needs to like prove that he can go up against somebody that knows what they're doing, but not like is at another level to him. That's why I think his next fight should be against Logan Paul. If he fights Austin McBroom, like come on, like it's at the end of the day, these fights are easy for him. You know what I mean? And I feel like, again, I don't have a problem with Jake fighting. And Vidal said this beautifully. It's who he is fighting that's the problem, because I feel like he talks so much and hypes himself up so much, but it's like But I mean, what do you think was gonna happen? He looks so good because the three people that he's fighting have been so bad. And I feel like if he went up against somebody that was moderately good or at his level, he would probably look a bit more average, but still look good. With this fight, everyone was like, he just KO'd him, and that was like, whoa. But it was more of like a whoa than, whoa, that was so impressive. I can't believe he did that. That guy was the best. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like everyone was surprised, and I think a lot of people that were uninitiated and didn't really know much about Jake and maybe underestimated him or thought Nate was just going to be better than him were probably more surprised and more impressed. But at the end of the day, impressive win, great fight, but let's not over exaggerate his abilities, and let's not, let's keep a level head about everything. Like, sub, and comment, and peace.